Welcome to Canada. Wait, welcome to Punjab. Or should I say Little Punjab in Canada? This is supposed to be the second home for Sikh community. According to the last Canadian census, Sikhs account for 2.1% of Canada's population, making Canada home to the largest Sikh population outside of India. Out of the 26 million total Sikhs, 2 million of them stay outside of India, and almost 40% of those living abroad call Canada their home. Sikhs have come a long way. You can find Sikhs in the Canadian Parliament and running big companies. You can also find Sikhs doing labor work in restaurants, coffee shops, furniture shops, plucking vegetables and fruit, or driving these mega trucks. Many of them come here to study, but in reality, they come here to make money. They come here for a good life. They feel no shame in working hard in restaurants and as truck drivers. They're willing to work in any sector, any field. Now, in 2023, out of the 388 members of the Parliament in Canada, 15 are from the Sikh community, which is more than 4% of the seats, while comprising only about 2% of the Canadian population. Of these, 8 seats are completely controlled by Sikhs, and they play a significant role in 15 others. For Sikhs, Canada is like paradise, where they can fulfill their dreams. But now, between their homeland and this paradise, there is some kind of a rift that is emerging, causing waves of worry in their hearts and minds. Last month, Prime Minister Justintrudeau revealed something that shocked both Canada and India. Trudeau accused India of killing a Khalistani sympathizer, Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
Over the past number of weeks, Canadian security agencies have been actively pursuing credible allegations of a potential link between agents of the government of India and the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
This is the first time any country has directly accused India of such an incident. India retaliated diplomatically.
India rejects Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's allegations that India was behind the killing of Khalistani terrorists. In fact, India responds to Canada expelling the Indian diplomat by a senior Canadian diplomat based in India.
As a result, Canada has shut down their consulates in Mumbai, Bangalore, and Chandigarh. Now, the big question is, did India become involved in the assassination of Nijjar? Which way will this tussle go? And how is it going to impact Sikhs? Let's find out in this video. But before we do that, we'll do a deep dive into the journey of Sikhs in Canada. Why are there so many Sikhs in Canada? Is it because of the thriving Sikh community? Is it because of their transformative and inspiring journey? How did Sikhs become socially and financially influential in Canada? How did they migrate thousands of miles to this distant, unknown country? Once upon a time, in the bustling bazaars of India, there lived a group of brave souls who were tired of injustice. They called themselves Sikhs, which means disciples or students. These people were all about equality, justice, and of course, some fabulous headgear. Their leader, Guru Nanak, kicked things off in the 15th century with his wisdom and vision about oneness with the universe. He had some great ideas like treating everyone with respect regardless of their background. The Sikhs weren't just about good vibes though. They stood up to some serious bullies in the history, like the Mughals and the British. Armed with their savage swords, they showed that they weren't afraid to defend their beliefs even if it meant getting in a bit of a sword fight. Over time, they built a beautiful temple called Golden Temple, which is like the Taj Mahal but shinier and open to everyone. They've also got that fab tradition of langar, where they serve up free food to all, no matter who you are. Now that's what I call a dinner party. Today, Sikhs are spreading love, tolerance, and some amazing food. So if you ever meet a Sikh, be ready for a warm welcome and maybe a dance to some bhangra beats. After all, they've been grooving to the rhythm of life for centuries, and they're not stopping anytime soon. My dad was born in Amritsar in a Hindu family, and the tradition back in the day was that the oldest son of the family living in Punjab would become Sikh. So believe it or not, my cousins are Sikh. I also have some cousins in Canada. While they're Punjabi, they're not Sikh. How did the first batch of Sikhs arrive in Canada? The history of Sikh migration to Canada spans over a century, marked by challenges, prejudice, and policy changes. The first people from India to migrate to British Columbia were Sikhs. These men were on an official trip as a part of the Hong Kong Army regiments. They were traveling through Canada in commemoration of Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee in 1897. Following this initial visit, a second contingent of soldiers visited British Columbia to celebrate the coronation of King Edward VII in 1902, led by Sardar Major Qadir Khan Bahadur. It was the group who became intrigued by the possibilities of residing in British Columbia. 1904 to 1908 is the phase when the first significant migration of Sikh community to Canada happened. Around 5,000 Punjabi men, and many of them wearing a turban, arrived in Canada to begin their new lives. The second major wave of Sikh immigration happened in the 60s to 80s, and this coincided with the Sikh nationalism and the Khalistan movement gaining steam in India. Initially, most migrants worked as laborers in British Columbia's logging industry and Ontario's manufacturing sector. They also worked in forestry, fishing, and railway. Sikhs were quite easily able to find work. On average, these men earned about $1 to $1.25, which was a lot less than the Caucasian workers. Slowly, Sikh community established themselves in Canada. In their struggle for social and political upliftment, Gurdwara played a very important role. The Vancouver Khalsa Diwan Society was created in 1906, and through its leadership, Sikhs built their first permanent Gurdwara 2 years later. Gurdwara became a site of common ground for all Sikh community members to come together, help one another, and provide moral support for one another. Throughout the 60s, tens of thousands of skilled Sikhs, some highly educated, settled across Canada, especially in the urban corridor from Toronto to Windsor. One of the biggest reasons behind the immigration is that Canada relaxed its immigration laws and also removed the racial quotas. So far in this video, we've learned a bit about the origins of Sikhism and the history of Sikh migration to Canada. Things are about to get interesting now. We'll look at the impact of the recent killing of Khalistani leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar. The Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau directly accused India for this assassination. In order to understand the impact of this, first we must understand the Khalistani movement. Khalistan literally means the land of the pure. But in this context, the term Khalsa refers to Sikhs, and the term Khalistan means nation of Sikhs. The idea of an independent land for Sikhs goes back to pre-partition India. Some Sikhs at that time thought that if Muslims could have Pakistan, then there should be also a Khalistan. That idea was rejected by the Indian government, and instead the Sikhs became a part of the state of Punjab. Then, in the 1960s, the idea of a separate homeland for Sikhs re-emerged and formed part of the demand for redrawing the boundaries of Punjab state so that Sikhs would be in the majority. The protests were successful, and the Indian government updated Punjab, a state whose boundaries now included speakers of the Punjabi language. The notion of a Khalistan separate from India resurfaced in a dramatic way in large-scale militant uprising that erupted in Punjab in the 1970s and 80s. Many of those Sikhs who joined the militant movement did so because they wanted an independent Sikh nation. The Sikh uprising in the 1970s and 80s was a violent encounter between Indian armed police and militant young Sikhs. Thousands of lives were lost on both sides. The conflict came to a head in 1984 when Prime Minister Indiragandhi launched Operation Blue Star to liberate the Sikhs' Golden Temple from militants in the pilgrimage center of Amritsar and capture or kill the figurehead of Khalistani movement, Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale. He was killed in the attack, and Sikhs around the world were incensed and their sacred place was violated by the police action. Indira Gandhi was assassinated in retaliation by Sikh members of her own bodyguard. In the aftermath of Indira Gandhi's assassination, riots against Sikh erupted in Delhi. Around 3,000 innocent Sikhs were killed in that riot, which created a deep scar in the Sikh community. In today's India, there are very few backers for the Khalistani movement, partly because India has outlawed the Khalistan movement. Groups associated with it are listed as terrorist organizations under the India's Unlawful Activities Prevention Act and are considered a serious security threat by the government. Punjab has been at peace for the last 3 decades. Now, the story is a bit different in the Western world. The US, Canada, and UK, Khalistani activism is not illegal and is protected under free speech laws. When I went to Trafalgar Square in London, there were protests going on where Sikhs were bashing Indian leaders.
I disagree.
I did not find that gesture very honorable. I still had my pink-colored sweet milk called Shabil and ignored the unwarranted comments from the protesters. I thought they were very angry. Maybe no one has apologized to them for what happened in 1984. They're like my brothers and sisters, so no point getting mad at them. I just ignored them. India and Canada have long maintained a bilateral relationship built on shared values, including democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. However, tensions have arisen recently due to the Khalistan issue. Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a Sikh from Punjab who championed the creation of separate state for Sikhs, was shot dead in June 2023 by hooded assailants. The Indian government considered him a terrorist and he was on a wanted list. But Indian officials deny accusations made by Canadian Prime Minister, and that caused a firestorm. The Indian government has temporarily put on hold visas to citizens of Canada, which has a large Indian diaspora. Both countries also expelled diplomats in a tit-for-tat response, and trade talks were frozen. There are allegations that the Canadian Prime Minister's direct attack on the Indian government is the result of its domestic political struggles. The country has a significant and powerful Sikh community which plays an important role in Canadian politics, and Trudeau doesn't want to lose their votes. Now, we're not here to take sides, but what does an average Indian American think about what's going on? In my honest opinion, I have no idea. But I know for sure that this is one of the greatest concerns and should be investigated utilizing all resources. A foreign country killed a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil. India should cooperate fully if they're not involved. But they're not cooperating, so what should we believe? I also strongly oppose the Khalistani movement as it is a threat to the sovereignty of India. Like Obama said in 2014 when Russia annexed Crimea.
The basic principles that govern relations between nations in Europe and around the world must be upheld in the 21st century. That includes respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity. The notion that nations do not simply redraw borders or make decisions at the expense of their neighbors simply because they are larger or more powerful.
There are separatist movements all over the globe, including in Africa, Asia, Europe, North America, Oceania, and South America. We cannot have Khalistan carved out between India and Pakistan, just as we cannot have Catalonia as a separate country outside of Spain, or Carinthia out of Austria, or Scotland out of United Kingdom. If you'd like to learn more about these separatist movements, then subscribe to my channel, as I'm working very hard on this upcoming video where I'll explain all of these popular separatist movements. I'd like Canada to also empathize and understand the gravity of the situation for India. Imagine this: how would Canadians feel if the Republic of Cascadia declared independence and India harbored those separatists under the shield of freedom of speech? How would you feel if Western Canada, with the support of the Maverick Party, declared independence, or Alberta, or Quebec, or British Columbia with the support of the BC Independence Party? On the global stage, India is booming and playing an important role in the world economy, especially as an alternative to China, and all of the Western countries want to be allies with India. I'm probably going to upset some of my Indian friends as well as many of my Sikh friends who are living abroad. So, was the Indian government behind the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar? My personal feeling, and using my best judgment, I used the duck test. If it looks like a duck, swims like a duck, and quacks like a duck, then it probably is a duck.